Welcome. My name is Asana, and this is the Asana channel where we defy all society's norms by keeping it real. Welcome to the 7th episode of Discussions That Grow the Mind. Today's discussion is focused on why capitalism is the root of all evil. We can all individually say that we've heard the concept, or we've heard our parents say, or some of our grandparents say, that money will be the root of all evil, and do not fall prey to money, do not submit to money, don't do things for money because it is the root of all evil. This concept has a lot of merit, because in my research, I was just thinking about where did capitalism actually start? Who decided on, okay, let's implement the capitalist system? Where did it start? What was the first time? Because I know in the past there was concepts such as bartering, and you exchanged based of conceived value for certain things, or you give spice for, okay, that is bartering. And then we had money, but it wasn't capitalist. It wasn't about dominance and owning industries. It was very much, I have something, you have money, let's exchange. So I did my research to find where it actually started and why it caused so much damage in the world, because it truly has. And anyone who thinks otherwise, anyone who thinks that the capitalist system is inherently good, you are delusional. You are not the good delusional, because some delusion is good, but you're insane. You know what I'm saying? You're mad, because capitalism, I think, is the common denominator in all of the evil that happens in this world. So let's get into the discussion, guys. Let us start off by watching a clip that just briefly explains the first kind of investment company and how they came into fruition and how they started dominating and how that spread throughout the world.
This group later incorporated as the Muscovy Company, the world's first major joint stock company, a shareholder corporation. English ships left with textiles, salts, precious metals, and weapons, and returned from Russia with rope, lumber, furs, and saltpeter. The company was granted property, given freedom from arrest, and set up warehouses in Muscovy, and would remain there until the Russian Revolution, almost 4 centuries later. This first joint stock enterprise, the Muscovy Company, made the 240 very wealthy, while gambling with others' lives. This produced a new program for the future, a way for surplus capital to produce more capital. Within the next decades, the same program would be followed by the Levant Company, the Venice Company, the East India Company, the Virginia Company, and the Hudson's Bay Company, not to mention all the Dutch, French, and Spanish companies that would copy this original model. These companies became incredibly powerful. They hired their own private armies and navies, and I'm sure you know what happened to many of the people living in these so-called virgin markets.
After watching the video, you can see that the capitalist system started in Europe, right? And it started with trade with another country. They were intending to trade with Asia, but ended up trading with Germany, and that concept essentially spread because it was so successful in the first place, right? As you saw in the video, they mentioned that for the system to work and for the system to succeed, there needed to be bloodshed, right? And that is common even today. For anything to succeed at a global level, for one person to dominate an entire industry, there has to be some sort of bloodshed, some sort of suffering upon normal people that don't want to dominate. And I think it's naive to say that capitalism is inherently good and you can succeed in it without some people suffering for it, especially if we're talking about dominating industries. Concepts such as slavery, we can say slavery is about hating black people, and that white people thought they were better than, but the root of it is that they wanted to succeed in terms of business, succeed in terms of industries, to dominate, be the core manufacturers, have the money come to them as a country, as an organization, as investors. They wanted to take over the world, and the value that they got from it is monetary. We can't deny that. So yes, racism, they might hate people, they might think it's bad, but the core of it is money. So your Gogo was right, guys. Another concept is colonization, which obviously goes along with slavery. I think the main thing that makes capitalism so bad is that it rewards, because the main thing about capitalism is that you need to have leverage. The one with leverage will always succeed. Doesn't matter if your leverage is gotten morally, or it's gotten from doing bad things and killing people and essentially harming normal people. As long as you have leverage in business, you will always succeed. You'll always come out number one. You'll always dominate, because leverage wins everything in capitalism. Same thing with wars. It's all about asserting dominance over industries, and the painful thing is that with capitalism, it comes at the expense of human beings. Slavery, it came at the expense of black people, the diaspora of black people. Americans don't know where their roots are from. They don't know their last names. They don't know which tribe they're from. In South Africa and Africa, we're stuck as third world countries, second world countries, because of colonization. And the success of the Europes and the European countries, meant the bloodshed of Africans. Same with wars. Within themselves, the Europeans fighting over land and resources in their own countries left their own people with traumas. And coming from war, we see it in a lot of shows as well, like what's this, Peaky Blinders. We see the effects of war the effects that war had on men.
In the first episode of the series, the most prominent example of the latter version of shell shock is Danny Whizbang, who suffers from random psychotic and violent outbursts, often triggered by small things.
You're not an artillery shell, Danny, you're a man. Hey, you're not a whiz-bang, you're a human being, Danny. You're all right. You're all right.
Of course, when it comes to Tommy, his PTSD is much less publicly visible. It is hidden away in nightmares and hallucinations that mostly occur when he is alone, when it is quiet at night.
It hurts even them, the ones that are dominating and trying to go out there and take control of people. It hurts them as well mentally. Capitalism strives where there's leverage, and leverage oftentimes in this world is not a dream world. It's gotten off of others being exploited. Capitalism rewards the ones that are willing to do anything for leverage. This means that even if it means that I am a murderer, I am a killer, I will succeed in the capitalist system because I have exerted dominance and I have I have leverage. We see this in stories such as Rockefeller. His success in the oil industry and the way that he got his wealth is through being a really terrible person, like to the people that are around you, to the people that you find in business. He succeeded through literally ruining so many lives, and although maybe he might have not directly stabbed and killed anyone, he took away people's dignity, took away people's livelihood. He crashed industries just for him to come out winning at the end, And it's really sad that, capitalism is a system that essentially rewards bad behavior. Like, there's no way to go around it. Capitalism will reward anything bad as long as you get leverage from doing that bad thing. So I'll play a video that also explains, one of the situations that Rockefeller was in, and how being a bad person essentially got him to be the most powerful man in America.
The oil industry was a tremendous source of business, as miners needed to get oil from wells to refineries, and refiners then needed to get it to the big cities. However, when Standard Oil began laying a vast network of pipelines all across America's eastern shore, the railroad companies were faced with the fact that one of their most important customers was making them obsolete. So Tom Scott, the owner of the Pennsylvania Railroad, decided to lay his own pipelines. But he also did something he knew John wouldn't like. He started building his own oil refineries. Now, Scott was in direct competition with John, so John interpreted this as declaration of war. He decided to launch an all-out attack against America's most powerful company. First, John cancelled all his business with the Pennsylvania Railroad and redirected all that oil to other railroads instead. Then, John lowered the price of Standard Oil kerosene, which meant that competitors had to do the same, thus reducing their profit margins and decreasing the shipment orders on the Pennsylvania Railroad. And finally, John convinced the New York Central and Erie railroads to lower their shipping fees drastically for everyone to make sure the Pennsylvania Railroad lost even more business. And these strategies most definitely worked. To compete with all this, the Pennsylvania Railroad literally had to pay refiners to transport oil for them. Scott also had to lay off hundreds of his employees and reduce the salaries of those who stayed by 20%. But John's attack didn't just affect the Pennsylvania Railroad. Another big railroad, the B&O, had to make similar layoffs and wage cuts, and thus John's attack on the Pennsylvania Railroad inadvertently caused one of the most violent labor strikes in American history. Dozens of people died in the commotion, and in Pittsburgh alone, the Pennsylvania Railroad lost 500 freight cars, 120 locomotives, and 27 buildings after they were torched by protesters. Even John started to get concerned by the chaos that was unfolding. Before long, the Pennsylvania Railroad, a Goliath once thought to be invincible, had lost the battle against Standard Oil, and Tom Scott was more than ready to surrender. Scott was in a desperate position, and John's business partner Henry, who saw business as war, saw this as an opportunity to crush him totally. But John had a better idea, and instead moved to coordinate a massive deal with the railroads. John agreed to help the Pennsylvania Railroad survive by guaranteeing 47% of Standard's traffic to them. The New York Central, the Erie, and the B&O got the rest of it. In exchange for the steady source of shipments, John demanded a very large secret rebate on the Pennsylvania's official rates, he demanded even more detailed information about their competitors' shipments, and he wanted 20 cents for every single barrel that passed through any of the railroads as well. A lot of this was similar to the secret alliance that had been proposed before, but this time John was the one who held the balance of power and could basically demand what he wanted. The railroads had little choice. And thus, the deal effectively made John one of the most powerful men in America. John basically now owned the railroads, he essentially controlled the oil industry, and had an all-seeing eye into every one of his competitors. He completely dominated Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Philadelphia, and there were only a few scattered refineries in New York that weren't his. Standard Oil was now in control of about 90% of the entire oil refining industry. However, as for John's rival, Tom Scott, even though John had technically now struck up a deal with his company, the Pennsylvania Railroad never regained its footing, and Scott personally never recovered from his humiliating defeats. Just a year later, Scott suffered from a stroke and died shortly after.
You can see that just for you to succeed in capitalism, you need to have no heart, you need to be willing to be immoral just to come out at the top. And I think this concept is still very prevalent nowadays. People that are leading industries, like let's take Tesla for example. Although Elon Musk is not deliberately killing the Congolese people, their suffering is what brings him his success. Their suffering is what gets us these iPhones. Their suffering is what puts those people at the top, because they have leverage, right? And the leverage is gotten by the suffering of African people that don't have anything to their name, that work just so they can make a living, but they're being given peanuts. They have to suffer and die and mine through terrible conditions just so the top guy in the capitalist system can succeed and exert dominance and go to space. For what reason? Why do you need to go to space when we are hungry? Yeah. Oh gosh, it's very hectic.
The great energy required to generate this global surface was the sacrifice of blood. That initial surplus had to come from somewhere, namely shipfuls of dead sailors and unclassed bodies, chained, figuratively or literally, to whichever looms produced that extra cloth in 1551. Bodies and lives are the fuel of the machine of machines, Lord of Lords, powering each new adventure and the creation of the world.
You know, for you to succeed, you know, and not necessarily succeed, I don't want to paint capitalism as completely bad, but for you to dominate in terms of industry and for you to be the top, you need to compromise on your humanity. Characteristics like selfishness, brutality, being a hard rock is what gets you to the top, essentially, right? And I think the series that depicts this very well, once again, is Peaky Blinders. Like, for Thomas Shelby to dominate and to continuously take over people that are above him and are above his league, he has to compromise on values. He has to compromise on being a decent human. He has to kill people along the way that don't deserve to be killed, because that's what gives him his edge. That's what puts him ahead, you know. Leverage, once again, it gives him leverage because they know he can't be messed with, because you're gone, you're dead, you know what I'm saying? Which is very sad, and like, it takes away his humanity and essentially it makes him enjoy his life less. I'll play a video that just explains the psychology of Tommy Shelby, and I think that is representative of, you know, the type of person that it takes to be the number one at the top.
Especially Thomas takes this to its extreme in his ambitions. Every time his family warns him not to punch outside of his weight class, that he should not provoke men more powerful than him, because they will come down on the Peaky Blinders and destroy them, he does so anyway.
For Christ's sake, why?
Hey!
Why?
Why? Because we fucking can! Because we fucking can, and if we can, we do.
Without the fear of death, he is willing to risk it all in the pursuit of more money and more power. The difference between Tommy and his family is that they see mortal danger in provoking enemies more powerful than them, especially when they are already making an incredible amount of money.
Thomas, you're a bookmaker, a robber, a fighting man. You're not a fool. You sell those guns to anyone who has use to them. You will hang.
However, to Tommy, the mortal danger is in simply having any person or organization with more power than him out there.
So, you've seen, it's pretty sad, you know. The capitalist system rewards behavior that takes away from our humanity. But this is not to say that, you know, capitalism is a bad system. I think the system itself is just a system. It's just the nature of humans that makes it evil, because humans are dominant, territorial, greedy beings, you know. We want to have everything and everything to ourselves. And I think the only thing that keeps us in check is, you know, concepts like religion, spirituality, and, you know, believing in a higher power. That's what keeps humans at bay. But inherently, we want everything. We want the best for ourselves and people who look like us, you know. That's why. But guys, my video cut and you don't say anything. Anyways, I even had to talk too much and you guys don't say anything. Anyways, I was saying that I think that's why also concepts such as racism exist, because, you know, us as humans are wired to want everything. Yeah, this is not to say that the free market is bad or it's inherently evil and, you know, capitalism should be done away with. We should be communists. Not at all. I think like the free market gives opportunity to anyone who can provide value, gives any opportunity, no matter how low you come from, no matter how rich you are. It allows the one who can provide value to the most succeed. And I think that's a beautiful system. It allows for you to be free, essentially, to do what you want, to contribute to the world as you feel necessary, you know, and you can succeed in doing that, right? But I think that the system is not necessarily the evil thing. I think the word is a catalyst. The system itself is neutral. It's just, it amplifies whatever you are. So if you're evil, it will reward. But the problem, you see, my mind is thinking here. The problem I do have with capitalism, though, is that it rewards the ones that choose bad. That's the problem. So as much as it's not inherently evil, it rewards evil. So as long as you can get leverage, if you get leverage the good way, it'll only amplify that. But if you get leverage through evil, you'll still win, even though you're evil. Anyways, yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something new, and I hope I can open your mind to thinking about certain things, because honestly the point of this channel is just to get people thinking, is to get our minds out of the gutter, because apps like TikTok and Instagram and Reels and YouTube itself is just, there's not a lot of value that goes around. And I want to be the guy, the one guy that's going against the status quo, and going against society's expectations, because who thought like some random 18-year-old girl would be thinking about capitalism? Exactly. So yeah. Also, I want to apologize for being gone for so long. I know there's people that actually watch and enjoy my videos, but life gets hectic, guys, and between not feeling motivated, between having schoolwork, between trying to maintain a stable mind, it's hectic. And sometimes I forget why I do this, and it just takes me time to just click back and be like, hey, let's do this thing, But yeah, please do follow, please do subscribe, please do share. It would be very appreciated. And yeah, bye.